Chapter 13. Equilibrium and Balance. A balance exists in equilibrium when no net force acts upon it, and that balance may have forces acting upon it, but the sum of its forces is equal to zero. In other words, where sum is the sum and F is the force, and the sum of the forces is equal to zero. And equilibrium is derived from the Latin word equus, which means equal, and libra, which means balance. And balance is derived from the Latin word balance, which means scale. For a just balance and scales belong to the Lord. All the weights of the bag are his concern. Proverbs 16:11. For a balance is based on its center of gravity, and the center of gravity is the point where the balance tends to rotate. And in analyzing the equilibrium of a weight, its torque is the force that acts upon the center of gravity, and the torque of that weight is the product of its weight and its length from the center. And when the weights are in balance, the torque of the two weights is equal, and the center of gravity holds the just scale in balance. Thus, where W is the weight of the bags and L is the length from the bags to the center. For God has commanded us to keep a just weight. For ye shall do no wrong in judgment, in measurement of weight or capacity. Ye shall have just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. Leviticus 19:35. And you shall have a full and just weight, you shall have a full and just measure, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you. Deuteronomy 25:15. Thus his servants would heed his commands. Everything was numbered and weighed. All the weight was recorded at that time. Ezra 8:34. But man has weighed down the scales with injustice, and man has weighed down the scale with iniquity. Alas, sinful nation, people weighed down with iniquity, offspring of evildoers, sons who act corruptly. They have abandoned the Lord, they have despised the Holy One of Israel, they have turned away from him. Isaiah 1:4. And man has weighed down the scale with violence. No, in heart you work unrighteousness. On earth you weigh out the violence of your hands. Psalms 58:2. And man has weighed down the scale with idolatry. Those who lavish gold from the purse and weigh silver on the scale hire a goldsmith, and he makes it into a god. They bow down, indeed they worship him. Isaiah 46:6. But God holds the balance of all justice in his hands, for he holds all creation in the palm of his hands. And behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and are regarded as a speck of dust on the scales. Behold, he lifts up the islands like fine dust. Isaiah 40:15. For who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and marked off the heavens by the span, and calculated the dust of the earth by the measure, and weighed the mountains in a balance, and the hills in a pair of scales? Isaiah 40:12. And God knows the intent of every man's heart. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and with him actions are weighed. 1 Samuel 2:3. But now all the scales of injustice shall be balanced. For a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Proverbs 11:1. For the affliction of his servants will be rewarded. For momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison. 2 Corinthians 4:17. But the deception and wickedness will be repaid. For how can I justify wicked scales and a bag of deceptive weights? Micah 6:11. Behold, I am going to break the staff of bread in Jerusalem. They will eat bread by weight and with anxiety, and drink water by measure and in horror, because bread and water will be scarce, and they will be appalled with one another and waste away in their iniquity. Ezekiel 4:16. For the third seal of famine has been broken. I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard something like a voice in the center of the four living creatures saying, A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not damage the oil and the wine. Revelation 6:5.